renewed, renewed energy, again he starts working in the fields. So it shows the family's condition, the economical status of the family of the poet's forefather and father. It shows their poor status of the family. No proper utensil to carry even milk. This stanza tells us that the grandfather worked very hard to run the family. Not only his grandfather, even his father also worked very hard to run the family, But still his father is working now. Why? Because he liked that profession. But the poet, he doesn't like the profession. That's why he changed his profession. His father is working in the garden. His father is working in the garden. No need to work in the garden for him because his son can feed him. But still he is working. Why? Because he wanted to continue his profession. He doesn't like to forget his profession. That's why he's working in the garden. So his grandfather used to drink the milk. He used to take a short nap, and again with renewed energy he used to start again working in the fields. The poet knows how hard his grandfather and father worked to run the family. So he knows pretty well how they worked very hard to run the family by digging the potatoes. But now the father need not work. I told you, no? Just now I told you that father, there is no need for him to work in the fields, to work in the garden. But still he is working. Why? Because he is habituated to that work. So that's why he is continuing his work. He could not sit idly. The poet's father could not sit idly. That's why he is still working in the garden. So from his grandfather and father, the poet learnt dedication in what he does, and he respects hard work. So even though there is no need for the poet's father, still he is working in the garden. So from his father, the poet had learnt dedication towards the work. He has no need to work in the garden. His son can feed him, but still he works because he is habituated to work. He likes to work. That's why he is still working in the garden. So by seeing his father, the poet, he learns how to dedicate himself to work. So he respects hard work. The pen is like gun in the poem. So the pen is compared to a gun. The pen is like gun in the poem. The poet describes the pen is his hand. The poet in his hand as a gun. The poet describes the pen in his hand as a gun. It is just like a gun. The pen in his hand is just like a gun. So, gun is very powerful instrument, no? You know pretty well about gun. And you know pretty well to what we use gun. Gun is very powerful instrument. So similarly here, the poet says that the pen is like a gun. The pen is very, very, very powerful instrument in the hand of the poet. So we see here, the poet says that even though my father worked very hard by making use of the spade, even though they worked with the spade, even though they worked hard with the spade, now the poet says he is also working very hard with the pen, which is mightier than the spade. The pen is mightier than the spade. The pen is very powerful instrument in the hand of the poet. The spade is associated with an honest manual labor. It is associated with the honest manual labor. It is in the hands of the spade is associated with an honest manual labor. See, it was used by his father, by his grandfather once. It had its own respect. It had its own value then. Because without that spade, they couldn't dig the potatoes. So it was very useful instrument, very valuable instrument in those days. But nowadays, as the poet is using the pen as the mightier instrument, the pen is very mightier instrument nowadays. It has become a mightier instrument nowadays. So the poet says that the pen is like a gun. So he compares the pen with a gun. The poet declares that the pen is mightier and powerful as gun. The pen is mightier. The pen is mightier. The pen is powerful as the spade, which was very useful once in the hands of the poet's father and grandfather. So by making use of this pen, the poet may intend to change the society, to bring awareness in the minds of the people. So in those days, the poet's father and grandfather, they worked hard for the sake of their own family. But nowadays, the poet says that he is working for the sake of the society, to bring some change in the society, to bring some awareness in the minds of the people. So, he supports himself. So, the poet says that what he is doing nowadays is mightier, powerful than that work. But still, he respects the work of his father and grandfather. He wants to do lot of work with this pen for the sake of the society. So with this pen, he thinks that he can change the society. He can bring some awareness in the minds of the people, he thinks. He writes poetry to make the society a better place. He wanted to make the society a better place. He wanted to change the society. He wanted to bring some change in the society. He wanted to bring some awareness in the society. He thinks that he can change the society by making use of this pen, this instrument, by writing literature or by producing literature. So he feels that his pen is mighty as gun. Thus the poet brings out the personality of the poet. So we can see how he supports himself, how he respects the work which was done by his father and grandfather. He is not looking down at the profession of his father and grandfather, but he changed his profession. He became an educated person. So that he wanted to bring some awareness in the society, awareness in the minds of the people. He wanted to change the society by making use of this pen, which is mightier, and he considers this pen as mightier than the spade. Thus the poet brings out the personality of the poet. And so his father and grandfather, they themselves dig the land to take out potatoes. The poet praises their strength as diggers. So the poet, he is not belittling. He is not belittling his father and grandfather. He is praising the strength of his father and grandfather. He is praising the work of his father and grandfather. He is praising the profession of his father and grandfather. So the poet, he praises their strength. he is praising the strength. He is praising the strength of the father and grandfather. But the act of digging is associated more with the passing on of special values from generation to generation. They dig the potatoes. They dig the potatoes. Poet's father and forefathers, they digged out the potatoes. So here, but the act of digging is associated more with the passing on of special values from generation. They digged out the potatoes, but here what the poet is doing, the poet is passing on special values to the society to bring some change in the society. They digged out the potatoes. It was their profession. And what is the profession of the poet here? He wanted to pass on some moral values to the society, to bring some change in the society, to bring some awareness in the society. And they dig the potatoes for the family, but now the poet is working for the sake of the society. He is now working for the sake of the society. He is now working for the empowerment of the society. So from generation to generation, we can observe the profession has been changed. Once their profession was digging out the potatoes, but now he wanted to dig out all the moral values, and he wanted to pass on all the moral values to the society for the empowerment of the society, for the empowerment of the people's mind. There is also an extended metaphor of digging the roots in the poem, which shows how the poet in his writing is getting back to his own identity. So here in this poem, we have to remember the most important thing, one most important thing we have to remember, that is, he wants to protect his identity. The poet wants to protect his identity. The poet wants to expose his identity. Identity of what? Identity of poet. He wanted to become a poet. He wanted to show himself to the world as a poet. By passing on some moral values to the society for the empowerment of the society, for the change of the society, for the sake of the people. He wanted to identify himself as a poet, as a good poet, as a good poet who passes on moral values for the empowerment. So he gives much importance to his own identity. Identity is very important here. So what he wanted to show to the world that he is a poet. He wanted to show to the world that he is writing or he is producing literature for the sake of the society. So two professions we see here. One is digging out the potatoes. That is old profession. The new profession is writing or producing literature, producing poetry. With this poetry, he wanted to bring some change in the society. So he got remembered how his father and grandfather used the spade, how they worked hard for the sake of their families, and now he wanted to expose himself. He wanted to show himself as a good poet by producing good poetry for the sake of the society. That's it. This is Mary Stella signing off. Good night.